the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to a show where me and Terry are going to be discussing the departure of Duncan Ferguson. Duncan Ferguson has left his role as an Everton coach after it's been nearly just over 8 years, that he's been at the club now in that capacity. Duncan Ferguson leaving to look for passage. The statement says that he's leaving to pursue managerial ambitions, which is, I don't think that's a moment too soon as far as he's concerned, and it could be for the benefit of everyone. But what's your take on Duncan Ferguson leaving? Because obviously, there's always been a bit of debate about should he have left sooner, maybe, or it's the right time for him to go.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big surprise. He went for the manager's position this time, and it was before Frank Lampard got it, and it was his second attempt at it. And I always thought once he didn't get it the second time, he was going to go. According to the stories that have come out now, he did offer to leave in January to let Frank and his team come just straight in and get on with it, but they wanted them to stick around. Obviously, he's seen the writing on the wall now that the first time he took the team as the manager, the caretaker manager, he pulled off something great. He got us points out of a run of games that no one gave us a chance of getting anything out of when we were in a perilous position. But no one could have argued when, to give it to him ahead of Carlo Ancelotti. Even Duncan Ferguson himself wouldn't have said he should have got the job over someone like that coming into the club.
He said to make sure they don't do that, didn't he? I think when after the Chelsea or the Man United game, when he was in that first stint, he actually said, "No, I don't want. I'd rather them get the best person for the job in."
Yeah, and I mean that was his strongest showing, and then obviously Carlo comes in, he gets kept on as one of the assistant managers under Carlo, and that was probably his best time at the club. I think Carlo, involved him, and he had a great relationship with the players. He still does, Duncan, but then obviously things change, and Benitez comes in, and then his role sort of changed from prospective future coach to sort of like safety nets. Like they just wanted him there around because I think a lot of people.
Benitez didn't want to get rid of him because he all wanted dead on a chopping block early doors, I think.
Well, whether he did or he didn't, the club were never going to get rid of him at the behest of Benitez, not in the first instance anyway. That might have been something, Benitez came onto because he tries to get rid of everyone. But, he stuck around as a sort of like safety net for the club. And it came into play when, we eventually, corrected the mistake and sacked Benitez. He's got rid of a load of coaches and loads of scouts and everything. So Duncan just basically had to, take control of another, train that had come off the rails. And
it was an even more rudderless ship than the first time. And obviously, there's nothing he could have done in that second caretaker stint. Obviously, we lost to Villa, and he didn't really have much to run with.
Yeah. Well, the thing now is, Lampard's come in and he's a manager who's younger than Ferguson. He's got not that much more experience than him, really, has he? Like a little bit more, but I think Ferguson's made the right decision. I think now is probably the time for him to go out there, and he wants to be a manager, to go out and be a manager somewhere, and if he can do well, he can possibly come back, because let's be honest, clubs, football's romantic like that. Steven Gerrard has been at Rangers, he's now at Villa, and a lot of Liverpool fans have the idea that when Jurgen Klopp leaves, Gerrard will come back, and that's not based on his managerial ability, it's because of who he is. And I think we've got a little bit of that with Ferguson. It's just you hope that he's going to make it and prove to be good enough and come back and manage Everton one day. And I hope that as well. Duncan Ferguson's my childhood hero, and he was my first favourite player. And I think as on the managerial front, he stepped up a couple of times for the club, and showed that no matter what else goes wrong at Everton, some things are just sacred, and Duncan Ferguson is one of those things. An Everton icon.
Yeah, it's going to be mad seeing him. If he does get a managerial job elsewhere, it's going to be mad seeing him in the colours of another team, certainly an English team, because it's. I'm not old enough to remember him wearing, when he moved to Newcastle and stuff, but obviously my dad did, and he was distraught watching that. And No, I'll keep that short because I'll end up going on a rant about how Richarlison is basically a parallel of that, and I'm infuriated about that because I've gone on Twitter rants about this, but Duncan Ferguson like wearing another team's colours in England is just going to be a mad one. But if it's what's needed for him to maybe have the chance of being the Everton manager at some point, then he's got to go and do it. And yeah, where can you realistically see him ending up?
I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? When managers have been caretakers at Premier League clubs or under 23s managers or whatever, like the level they go to, it's not like an exact science, is it? Some of them go to the Championship, some of them go to Scotland, some of them go to League Two. It just depends on the club and the timing. Like I think, Dunk's really got to get it right with his first job choice because that'll define his career. If there's nothing that he fancies open now, then I wouldn't go for it. I'd be very picky. Now that's not to say that he can just walk into any job he wants, but I think it's the right club is crucial. A club that's going to be patient with a new manager because even though he's 50, he is still a new manager. Not ones who are going to chop and change and sack him, as soon as he gets up on a bad result. So, and also there's other things that come into play. He might, I don't know. He might want to stay in the Northwest because that's where he's based and where he's lived for a lot of his life now. You look at what clubs have got managers that might be replaced soon. You look at Blackburn,
isn't there?
Yeah, Blackburn. I don't know whether they've filled their vacancy yet. It seems like Wigan, not Northwest based, but Derby County needs a manager. That one might be a little bit too hot for him at the minute, even if they're in League One. They're a massive club, but there's so much going on behind the scenes. Might not be right for him. It just depends. Or he could just wait and see if Rangers get rid of their manager. I mean, Van Bronckhorst.
I don't know how much he gets on with Rangers these days. I don't think he's I know we obviously played for them before Everton, but I don't think he's got the best relationship with Rangers. I mean, in terms of the clubs up in Scotland, there's not many clubs of the calibre that I think could help him springboard his career. You're talking those two, probably. Maybe Hearts, Hibs or something, but
I mean, there's more going on there, than we know about, with Scottish football and Dunk. It might just be a case of he doesn't want to go back to Scotland. He wants to stay in England or even in the northwest of England. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'll be appointed anywhere this summer. I think he'll wait. Could have a full season out, or he could wait for a good opportunity to come up mid-season and apply for it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because will he be going for a lot of the same jobs that David Unsworth will go for? Could be.
I forgot about Unsworth, obviously, and we're going to touch on that now, actually, which is the continued sort of exodus of these sort of ex-players almost. A lot of the time, not so much Duncan Ferguson, but probably Unsworth have bemoaned the jobs for the boys side of things, and to see that there's been a lot more upheaval since Thelwell come in terms of changing the personnel. It's very long overdue, but I think it's the right time, isn't it, for to start we need to start implementing something a bit different at the club. It obviously hasn't worked for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people consider Duncan Ferguson part of the jobs for the boys stuff, and I certainly can't argue with that because it's the same, people in charge who've oversaw, that entire era. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Kevin Thelwell's had a hand in Duncan Ferguson going. I think this was probably always on the cards, and I think things like Duncan Ferguson, after what he's done for the club, that probably goes a lot higher than Kevin Thelwell. So it really is a big reset for the club this summer. It should be more so with the board level, but that's a different video. But the fact that there's been change in structure to help the club catch up with other modern clubs is a very good thing, and a huge turnaround in personnel. There's obviously going to be other changes at the training ground as well. I hope it brings better results because we've tried the old ways for a while, and it's not been the cause of all the problems, but it's been a contributing factor. So maybe something a little bit new and fresh will be better for Everton. But Duncan Ferguson showed that a little bit of old-fashioned sometimes is what you need when you're in trouble as well. So there's room for both, if you ask me.
Well, for me, Duncan Ferguson sort of he stands for Everton more than he stands for that Everton, the regime that we don't like. I think he stands for the Everton, the real Everton, the Everton that belongs to the fans, and he is a figurehead for the fans at times. I think it's not the same as a lot of the other ones. I think, you speak of the likes of, Jose Baxter and Jeffers and all that. I think that's the jobs for the boys. That sort of nepotism regime, that regime hierarchy who have been running the club terribly for a long time, that's a symptom of that, I think. But I don't think Duncan Ferguson necessarily is. I think he's got a lot more about him. And I think, like you say, he's obviously ready to pursue the ambitions. I don't think some of those other players or ex-players have just mentioned have that ambition or the ability to pursue those ambitions.
Whether he is or he isn't is immaterial because he's contributed more. He's actually positively helped the club at times when it needed it, which a lot of the others haven't. They've just been there for a free lunch. Let's be honest. But one thing Duncan Ferguson, is when even if he's not at Everton or as an employee, he's just Everton in his blood, isn't he? Like you speak to any fan who's had any interaction with him, and even the ones who haven't, they've always got a good Duncan Ferguson story. Whether it's when they were watching him as a kid, whether it's meeting him and you hear all kinds. Like he turns up to people's houses when they've just had a family member pass away, to pass on condolences and help them out and all that. I was listening to an Everton Space the other night where someone was saying that they certainly donated money to a school to get a new bus and everything. You just think you wouldn't put any of that past Duncan Ferguson. He really is a man of the people, and he's not just a man of the people, he's a man of the Everton people. He cares about this club the way the supporters do. He cares about the supporters. He's a man who, when he took over as caretaker manager, wore Howard Kendall's watch on the touchline. He just gets Everton. He is Everton, and I just wish him nothing but the best when he goes out into wider football, and I hope he does really well and does so well that he can come back and be the manager, because if he doesn't, it won't diminish anything, my affection for him or any fans' affection for him. But it'd just be one of those like fantasy dream scenarios that he does, and I really hope he does.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant if he could. It'd be it's one of those. Stranger things have happened. I think for me, what I want to touch on though is like that sort of change of it's part of that sort of change of personnel now, where obviously the new management's coming in. Is this the sort of it's such a watershed moment for the club? I think to obviously the likes of Duncan going, but just to sort of change the setup altogether. There's talk about like restructuring and how do we sort of ensure that this restructuring works? Because there's a lot of there's a lot of sort of even now there's still pessimism around it, isn't there? Because of who's overseeing
it. Pessimism will only go away when they see a difference in results. You can change the procedure as much as you want, but if the results are the same, and I don't mean results on the pitch, I just mean results in general. Like when the outcomes are better, people's faith will increase. It's hard to get behind things when you've just had so many false dawns. But right now, almost whilst I'm very happy for Everton not to be in the situation they're in, it might be big picture wise a good thing in the long term, because it's made the owner, on paper, it's made the owner step away from football matters and just let the people he employs to take care of the football side of the club, take care of things. The stadium's coming on perfectly, because the stadium is a process where you have to get experts to design and build a stadium, and the owner can't just go, actually, I'm going to change this and that about the stands and I'm going to do this. There can be no interference from unqualified directors and unqualified owners in the stadium, and that's the attitude we need to take now with the football side of things. no interference from unqualified people, and no influence from agents or whoever. Just let the football people who you put in place, the Kevin Thelwells, the Frank Lampards, let them run the club and let them get good structures in place and hope that you get better outcomes as a result of it. It certainly couldn't be much worse after last season.
Certainly, and on the note of structure, with Duncan Ferguson leaving, is there another potential space on the coaching staff? Could someone new come in?
I mean, the club have said that they're not going to replace him with another coach, but I just think that's because they can't get who they want. I think, they've been heavily linked to Anthony Barry at Chelsea, but as of the time of recording this, looks like he's staying at Chelsea because Chelsea don't want to lose him. I think I don't know who's a good coach and who isn't. Let's be honest, no one does, apart unless you're actually in that world. But I think if the right person comes available, he will be replaced. There's always going to be room for more, people of talents and skill.
More expertise. Yeah,
more expertise into the machine. But if that's not available, you don't just go out and recruit for recruitment's sake. I read the comments from Marcel Brands this week, like everyone else did. And he bemoaned the fact that when you get rid of a manager, that all the coaching team have to go as well, and there's no permanent infrastructure in a club on the coaching side of things that you can just come in to. I've always thought that should be a thing. It doesn't happen in football, but I've always thought that clubs should have their own set of, the way they've got, you don't lose all your physios, you don't lose all your nutritionalists, you don't lose all your sports scientists and your data analysts when you sack a manager. You keep all that machinery, but you do lose your coaches and you do lose, that side of things. I think there should be clubs, and I hope they do move towards this in the future. The clubs should just have their own thing, and managers will come in and out, and they've got their own assistant manager and their own number 3 guy who does another thing.
I think a lot of that's down to because a lot of the coaches are trained in the methods of the manager, and they're there to sort of get those methods across to the players. So,
yeah, I mean, that hasn't come into football, but I think it might at some point in our lifetime, where the same way there was loads of things that we didn't do 20 years ago with regards to sports science. Now it's just everyone does it. It's not even questions. I think that will be a thing we'll look back and go, God, do you remember you had to used to replace 10 coaches every time you sacked a manager? Now we only we sack a manager and you've got to replace 2 coaches and everyone else is just your own in-house people. I think it might develop into that scenario, but who knows? But that's the type of thing I would like to see football do. I think that's more stable. Clubs will have a lot more security that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd like to see it myself. I think it's just you're putting pressure on. I think the coaches would have to start taking on board a lot of different tactical methods, because if you change the manager every couple of years, they'd have to maybe know 3 or 4 different ways of playing.
But this is the thing. I'm not suggesting you keep the same assistant manager and all that. You'd still have the big guys who come in and change it. But I'm talking about you still have the same striker coach, you still have the same goalkeeper coach, etc. I'm talking about the sort of junior coaches who work on, the drills, the positioning, the actual big guy, the big plan makers, the ones who set the rhythm and decide what the tactics are going to be. They will always change. You'll never have, a head coach and assistant manager who are in place all the time. But I think, you should have, the way you've got nutritionalists, the way you've got sports scientists, you should have coaches like that as well. But I could be talking up my arse, I don't know, but we'll see. And that might have been something if that had been around now. Duncan Ferguson might have been happy to do that, but clearly he wants to be a manager, and I think that's it's going to be very interesting to see where he goes next and see how well he does, because we've always thought he could do well, but let's see him outside the Everton bubble.
It'll be very, very interesting to see, because obviously it's completely uncharted territory. But we'll finish up here anyway. We'll finish by wishing the best of luck to Duncan Ferguson in his future, career endeavours, because he's obviously been such a great servant to this club as both player and manager. Gave me one of the best experiences in recent years as an Everton fan, watching that Chelsea game when he was the manager, and of course great memories as a player as well. So, all the best to Duncan Ferguson. And yeah, we'll leave it at that, guys. Let us know your opinions on the departure of Duncan Ferguson. Drop us a comment, give us a like, and subscribe for more content. Check the link out to the store in the description below as well. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching on the Toffee Blues.